Israel continues pounding the Gaza Strip with air and artillery strikes for its seventh day. The death toll is rising. More than 1,400 Palestinians and at least 1,300 Israelis have been killed. Gaza's only local electricity producer has run out of fuel and has shut down. The humanitarian situation in the territory is worsening. The United Nations says 423,000 people have been displaced in the enclave, which has been completely blockaded by Israel. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has met the Prime Minister, stressing strong solidarity with the Jewish state. Arise News chief correspondent John Cookson reports from the Israeli city of Tel Aviv.
The earth shakes in Gaza as it has so many times before under a barrage of Israeli airstrikes. Somewhere down there, Palestinians shelter for their lives, and somewhere down there, 150 hostages pray for the nightmare to end.
Let's see. Sorry, it's under these circumstances.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Israel on a two-day visit to the region, where he met with Prime Minister Netanyahu and his new Israeli war cabinet. He'll also meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Jordan's King Abdullah. Blinken had this for the Israeli people.
The message that I bring to Israel is this: you may be strong enough on your own to defend yourself, but as long as America exists, you will never ever have to. We will always be there by your side.
Hundreds of thousands of Israeli military forces continue to build in number close to the border with Gaza. Tanks will be used in the first wave of the expected assault, but when it comes to defeating Hamas militants in densely populated Khan Yunis and Gaza City, the battle will be fought from the air and in street-to-street fighting when casualties are expected to be high.
Hamas is ISIS, and just as ISIS was crushed, so too will Hamas be crushed. And Hamas should be treated exactly the way ISIS was treated. They should be spit out from the community of nations. No leader should meet them. No country should harbor them. And those that do should be sanctioned.
The occupied Palestinian West Bank has been sealed off since the Hamas assault on Saturday. The people there chanting support for Palestinians in the occupied Gaza Strip ahead of the expected Israeli offensive.
A message to Gaza, a message to the resistance, a message to our Palestinian people in the diaspora, a message to our nation, and a message to the free people of the world, that these people are one, united, and will continue until all our rights, God willing, are fully and undiminished after the occupation is defeated. And that day is not far away, and our people are able, God willing, to achieve that.
Hamas fired volley after volley of rockets into central Israel overnight, most of them destroyed by the Iron Dome defense system. Debris is all that remains.
I just woke up, I opened my door to smoke a cigarette, and I saw polices and, a lot of mess. And I understood that one of the Iron Dome pieces just dropped on our rooftop.
In Tel Aviv, they're rallying in shopping malls to fill boxes to send to Israeli soldiers and to fellow Israelis who've lost their homes to rocket attacks.
The city is quiet. The city is sad, and people are staying home. Most of my friends that live in the area, they went back to their parents, or they flied to Cyprus. And the cafe I work at is not just now open till, just for a few hours, so people can get supplies of bread and stuff.
The normally vibrant city of Tel Aviv is indeed muffled today, silent at times. Hamas fired a wave of rockets here last night, and the people fear there will be more to come. John Cookson, Arise News, Tel Aviv.
For more on the conflict in the Middle East, we now join Arise chief correspondent John Cookson in Tel Aviv, Israel. Good morning, John, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
All right, great. Well, the video and the reports you just showed us there, first off, we saw U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking their joint conference with Israel. And one of the things, of course, a very powerful statement he talked about was the, U.S. as an ally to Israel, saying that as long as they existed, they will always have support from the United States of America. He was also billed to meet with the Palestinian side. I don't know if he met with the Palestinian side and what the messaging was in terms of the U.S. stance and what they're urging Palestine to do at this time of the conflict.
It was a very moving press conference, actually. There was nothing much new coming out of it, except the number of Americans who were killed in the raid by Hamas. And that figure is 25, which we didn't know before. But it was a clear message from the United States that it stands by Israel to the end, and that was reflected in the speeches of both men. It was an emotional time for both of them. Antony Blinken saying that he came to Israel not only as US Secretary of State, but also as a Jew, given his Jewish background, and he likened some of the terrible things that happened to his family during the Holocaust to what's happening now. So yes, nothing great from a news point of view, but certainly the emotion was there between those two men. Blinken is now in Jordan meeting with Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president. He represents a faction of the Palestinians in the West Bank, and also with King Abdullah of Jordan. Blinken actually moves on later to Qatar, to Saudi Arabia, to Egypt, and to the UAE, all to shore up, I think, confirmation from Arab states that they will support what's going on at the moment and try to use their influence on Hamas. We're looking at a map of Gaza because the big news today is that the Israelis have given the Palestinians 24 hours, that was in the early hours of this morning, to move from the north of Gaza down to the south. Now, that's now 14 hours to go. I don't know how that's going to happen because there are 1 million people expected to be on the move. The halfway point is halfway on the map that we're looking at there, just above the writing of Gaza. So if we could get the map back, I'd like to explain that 1 million people have to move from the north, from Gaza City, all the way to the south. I don't know logistically how that's possible. It just isn't. The place has been bombed to bits. The roads are destroyed. There's no form of transport to move 1 million people. Indeed, the UN has warned in the last hour or so of devastating consequences of trying to push 1 million people down into the south. It may well be that the crossing into Egypt in the south may be open for the people, but it's a difficult situation to understand and puzzling why the Israelis have set this deadline of 24 hours, which, as I say, is just 14 hours from now. I don't know how they're going to move 1 million people in 14 hours. I mean, even in normal times, you couldn't do that. So that's the worrying developments at the moment.
Well, John, the U.S. is supporting Israel. It has pledged arms supply to join Israel in prosecuting the war against Hamas. Britain has deployed the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. But at the same time, both countries are saying, Israel should take every precaution not to harm civilians. What are we dealing with here? Hypocrisy on the part of UK, Britain, and the United States. What kind of hypocrisy are they putting before us? Do you think it's hypocrisy? Or you think, they are just concerned for the Jewish population?
I think it's a reality of the situation. Britain, of course, is a close ally of America, and what tends to happen when America is involved in a fight, although not directly in this particular case, then the Brits join in. And what the British are doing is, as you say, sending 2 warships to the region, but perhaps more importantly, surveillance aircraft to monitor telephone conversations in the Middle East to find out what Hamas is actually planning, or other groups, including perhaps Hezbollah in Lebanon. So that's a key bit of intelligence that the British are going to supply to the Israelis. The Greeks have also moved a warship into the Eastern Mediterranean. This joins the American presence of aircraft carrier and 5 or 6 American warships. I think they're there in case this region explodes. They will provide intelligence to Israeli forces, because the Americans have very sophisticated listening devices to add to the ones that the Brits are going to provide. But I think the movement of these allied warships to the region is more of a precaution than anything else, and it may well also be that they'll be involved in the evacuation of civilians. Who knows? Because nobody knows what's going to happen. The other role that they may have, I'm sure, as I already mentioned earlier this week, there'll be special forces on these warships ready to possibly move in to rescue foreign nationals who are held as hostages.
Right. I want to talk about a new trend that is happening now, about armed Israelis that are now attacking, Palestinians, people that have guns, that in these areas, maybe probably around the villages around Gaza, and Palestinians living around communities close to them. There's that new spate of violence that nobody's talking about. Can you talk about that? And what have you been hearing about that?
Yeah, you make an important point. I mean, there are Arabs living in Israel, especially in East Jerusalem and cities like, for example, Jaffa. But at the moment, there seems to be no protests coming from them, certainly not on the streets, to indicate anger about what's happening to Palestinians in Gaza. There are demonstrations, as you saw in my report, in the West Bank, but the West Bank is more of an autonomous zone, controlled, of course, by the Israelis, but people have far more freedom there. And I think what's happening in Israeli territory where Palestinians live, they're frankly just keeping their heads down at the moment. I think that's why we're not seeing a great deal of protest from Palestinians living in Israel.
Well, thank you very much, John, for giving us updates from Tel Aviv in Israel. We look forward to getting even more from you with regards to developments, in this war against, Hamas, Israel-Hamas war. Thank you very much.